Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you to all of you who has already spent your time to come to this library. I think there's 70 of you here that already came from your classes to this library. And also, I think that we also have online participants joining from YouTube and Zoom, coming from various countries, from Indonesia and from Nepal especially. I also would like to say welcome to online participants who are currently attending our public lecture entitled Changing Geopolitical Landscape of South Asia. I'm Hadzam Infalrobi. I will be your host and session chair for this event. And I really hope that we could have some productive meetings today. So I think that I will not be having too long introductions, but there are some rules that I need to explain for our event today. So for all of my students, Dr. Jaiswal will be speaking in English. Yeah. So I've briefed him not to talk too fast. I mean, because of students' level of comprehension is varied here. So if you have any questions or any comments and remarks to Dr. Jaiswal's lecture, please feel free to give him comments during the question and answer session. And if you are having hard time asking in English, you can always ask in Bahasa Indonesia. And I will be helping you to translate it to English, and Dr. Jaiswal will reply it in English, and I will help you to translate to Indonesia. But it is suggested to all of you who have attended this event to use English, as the language of this program would be English. For online participants who are joining this event, we'll be also entertaining questions from your sides. There will be some runners who will be forwarding the questions to us, to me, the session chair, and I will be reading and also curating questions from both the offline and online participants. Yeah. So I think that's the rule that I need to explain to everyone. So let's start with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And I think that I need to introduce Dr. Jaiswal. So students, I would like to ask you, do you know where is Nepal? Where is it? South Asia. Which part of Nepal is South Asia? In which part of South Asia is Nepal? Do you know what is the main attraction of Nepal? Do you know? Everest, okay. What else? You know that nowadays a lot of people are backpacking to Nepal, yeah, to hike the Annapurna, to the Annapurna base camp. What do you know else about Nepal? Himalaya, okay. Himalaya is Everest. So anything? Oh, the flag. Yeah, the flag. The flag is different from other flag. The flag is having a unique shape, and I think Dr. Jaiswal will also explain to you why the Nepal flag is shaped like that. Anything else about Nepal that you might know before I introduce to Dr. Jaiswal? Okay, maybe later, yeah. So that's good. So at least some of you have basic knowledge about Nepal. So today, Dr. Jaiswal is coming directly from Kathmandu, yeah. So Kathmandu is a city located in the valley of the Himalaya, and it's really cold, right, Dr. Jaiswal? It's not that as warm as here. And Dr. Jaiswal has been working as a professor in Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu, and also research director at the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement. And Dr. Jaiswal has been writing a lot of publications on South Asian politics and also about gender issues in South Asia. So yeah, probably we are having this topic of changing geopolitical landscape of South Asia, but Dr. Jaiswal is open to questions surrounding to Nepal and South Asian politics. So if you have any other issues that is probably quite different from this, you can also open to that question. But it is preferred that all of the question will be asked within these boundaries of the topic of geopolitics in South Asia. So Dr. Jaiswal, are you ready? Yeah, I think you can sit or you can just stand around because my students love interaction. So it's up to you. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. As a teacher, it's always nice to stand. Uh, so, thank you. It's really a distinct pleasure to be here in Yogyakarta. It's my first visit to Indonesia, and before I could step on any other cities of Indonesia, I came to Yogyakarta. So it's my privilege, it's my honor, and I have been enjoying this place in terms of food, the people, the climate, and everything here. For that, I would like to thank the organizer, Department of International Relations, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Head of Department, Madam Karina Uttami Dewi, and my good friend, Hazda Min Fadil Robi, for the kind invitation. Let me start with Nepal. That is where we started the conversation. I come from Nepal, and we have two neighbors. We have China on the north, and we have India on three sides. We are a landlocked country. We have no access to water. That's why I love seas, and that's why I came to Indonesia. I love the water. I love the ocean. Because as a rule, there is a saying, as a rule, man is fool. When it is hot, he wants cool. When it is cool, he wants hot, right? So I come from the mountain, and I love seas. And maybe you are from the sea place, you might like the mountains. That is human nature, that you like what is different, what you don't have. And that makes us grow, right? We learn new things. We like to like new things which we don't have. As Nepal is between two big power, or the countries of Asia, India and China, we have very good relation with both of them, and we have complex geopolitics that we'll be talking today, because both the countries are too different in different form. One is China, which is a communist country, which is a different system. On the other side, we have India, which is a democracy with different system. And both India and China have competitions. Both India and China are the largest economies. They come in top 5. They have the highest population. Both are nuclear power. Both have huge military. At the same time, in the past, they have fought war. In 1962, India and China had war. So the relation is very complex when you look at their relations. Coming back to the flag, where my friend raised, Nepal's flag is the only flag in this world which is a triangle. It's a mix of two triangles. And if you reverse the flag of Nepal, it looks like a mountain. Okay? So mountain represent Nepal. Out of the 10 highest mountain in the world, we have 8 highest mountain in Nepal. Out of all 10, only 2 are in other countries, one in Pakistan, one elsewhere. But from the top, Mount Everest, and other 7 highest mountains in the world comes within Nepal. Nepal is not as big as Indonesia. It's very small in size, but it has diverse topography. We have highest mountain in the world. We also have lowest plains. In very short span, we have all kind of climate. So in some places, you can have weather like Yogyakarta. In some places, it's snowing even right now. So we have very diverse climate. Another most important thing, what Nepal is known for. Do you know Lord Buddha? Buddhism? Gautam Buddha? He is born in Nepal. So one of the origin of religion, I think there are many Buddhists even in Indonesia. So Buddha was born in Nepal in a place called Lumbini. Lumbini is Nepal. So that is another unique feature of the country that I come from. Now, let's start, and in the process, we'll be talking about all these. There? Okay. It's not smooth. Where is the receiver? Oh, it's off. Okay. Okay, thank you. So today I'll be talking about changing geopolitical landscape of South Asia. If you look at South Asia is changing. South Asia is becoming more and more important in international politics these days. So let's start. What are the major factors that make South Asia so important? There are three major players. India, which is in South Asia, China, which is a neighbor of South Asia, and US, which is a global power. These three countries play an important role when it comes to South Asia. Now let's look at these three countries and then move further. If you look at foreign reserve, foreign currency, US has $241,000 million. This is the data of April 2022. And China has much more than that. It has more than 3 million foreign currency reserve, while India has $601,000 million. So that makes South Asia very important, that this region has the three major players which are very rich. In terms of external debt as well, US has 30.4, China has 13, and India has just $614 billion as an external debt. Growth rate of these countries you can look at, US is 5.67, China is 8.08, and India is 8.94, which is highest. In terms of GDP, this country also very important. US is 19, China is $12 trillion, and India is just 2.6. In terms of defense budget as well, these three countries spend huge amount of money. US spent $801 billion, China spent $293 billion, and India also spent substantial amount, that is $76.6 billion. And all these three countries are nuclear. South Asia is a center of nuclear countries. So US has 5,428, China has 350, and India has 160 nuclear warheads. So this shows how these three countries are located in terms of the power structure. Now let's look at South Asian internal politics. We all know where South Asia is, right? It's above Southeast Asia. Then there is East Asia on the other side. You have West Asia, and you have Oceania. You have all the Pacific Ocean on one side. So if you look at South Asia, we can see that geographically, South Asia is very close. Almost all the people of South Asia look very similar. If you look at the face, you can't differentiate whether he is from Pakistan, or Nepal, or Bhutan, or Bangladesh, or Sri Lanka, or Maldives. They look very similar. In terms of geographical proximity, they are all closer. They have historical linkages, because at one point of time, many countries were one. Before the birth of Bangladesh, it was a part of Indian subcontinent. Pakistan was formed later. So many countries were formed after splitting of the South Asian subcontinent. So the history of Bangladesh, the history of Pakistan, the history of India is almost similar. So these countries have similar history. They have cultural linkages. There is cross-border marriages. Like if you look at Nepal and India, Nepali can go to India without passport. Nepalese can go to India without visa. You can go there every day, work, and come back home. You can go and get married to people from a different country. That is the kind of relations in South Asia. So there is very different cultural links, very close cultural links, geographical proximity is there, there are historical links, and they all have more or less similar political and economic system. Almost every country of South Asia has similar kind of political system, similar kind of economic system. And that makes South Asia very important. If you look at the dynamics of economy in this region has a dynamic economic growth. India and Bangladesh has very impressive growth rate. In the past, it is India. At the moment, even Bangladesh is progressing at very fast rate. The GDP growth of India and Bangladesh is very impressive. And that makes South Asia very visible. Now, everyone knows where South Asia is because of high economic growth rate of India and Bangladesh. We also know that South Asia is the second largest economy in the world. If you put the GDP of all the countries of South Asia, it's the second largest because this also has three most populous countries in the world. If you look at in terms of population, India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, it has a huge population, and that provides huge market to South Asia. So South Asia is also a huge market in terms of economy. It's also, because of population, it's a huge market. At the same time, the combined GDP of whole South Asia is second highest in the world, which makes it very prominent. As I said, South Asia has two nuclear countries, India and Pakistan. And at the same time, the neighbor of South Asia is China, which is another nuclear country. So South Asia is a center of nuclear flash zone. It's a place where there are lots of nuclear bombs placed. At the same time, all these countries spend lots of money on defense. India, Pakistan, and China, which is not South Asia, but it's a neighbor of South Asia. All these three countries spend lots of money in defense. That makes a center very important when it comes to conflict resolution. Again, the issue of Kashmir, you might be aware that India and Pakistan are fighting for Kashmir. Okay, it's a disputed territory, and that has grabbed global attention. So South Asia is in such a place that there are major militaries, all have nuclear, both have nuclear. They spend lots of money on defense, and they have major conflict like Kashmir. And then there's another important factor, China. This makes South Asia very complex when it comes to security. As I said, South Asia has all kind of topography. We have desert, we have highest mountain in the world, we have all kind of land, we have island, we have archipelago, we have bay, we have all kind of land structure in South Asia. At the same time, two major religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, it originated in South Asia. Buddhism originated in India, Nepal. Buddhism originated in Nepal. So this is a place which is the birthplace of two major religions. At the same time, the number of Muslims in South Asia is huge. So there's a remarkable number of Muslims in South Asia. So it's a place where we have Hindus, Muslims, and Buddhists, coming together. At the same time, there are other religions as well, but these three are the major religions of South Asia. Again, this region has been a place of great power play. All the major power, like you had Dutch here. Similarly, in South Asia was also the colony of many great powers. British ruled for almost 90 years. Portuguese were there, Dutch were there, even French were there. All those were there in ancient times. They were colonial power. In fact, Nepal is the only country in South Asia that are not colonized. Nepal was never colonized. Okay, India was colonized, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all were colonized, but Nepal was not colonized. But this whole South Asia is a place where there has been lots of colonial powers. Even after the independence, after Second World War, the major power continued to play their role. If you look at Afghanistan, Soviet was interested, then US was there. Pakistan, US had a strong engagement. India, Soviet had a strong engagement. So even after independence, US, Russia or Soviet and China has played a major role in South Asia. So every country is interested in South Asia. So South Asia is a place which is a place for major great power competition. South Asia also has all kind of conflict. Like we have ethnic conflict. In Sri Lanka, there was a war between two ethnicities. Similarly, there are religious conflicts. Sometimes within the country, people from two different religions are fighting. There are border conflict, India and Pakistan, India, China. So South Asia has all kind of conflict, ethnic conflict, border conflict, and religious conflict. At the same time, if you look at South Asia, the history of South Asia is the history of merger. Two countries have come together as one country. Like Sikkim was a new country, it became part of India. It merged into India. Similarly, it also has a history of split. East Pakistan and West Pakistan were two different countries. And then East Pakistan split and became Bangladesh. So one country became two countries. So South Asia has the history of both merging of two countries coming together, also two countries splitting into two parts. One country split into two parts. Now, At the same time, South Asia is also known as the graveyard of empires. Many empires have lost battles in South Asia. What happened in Afghanistan? US fought for 20 years and they left, right? Again, in the past, Soviets were fighting in Afghanistan. Many times, the great powers like Britain, Dutch, and all has come into South Asia, and they have lost it. So South Asia is also the graveyard of great empires. Great empires have lost battles in South Asia. So South Asia is very geopolitically very important. If you look at US foreign policy, United States see South Asia as a pivot to Asia. US thinks that if you want to rule over Asia, you have to have a strong control over South Asia. Only if you can have control over South Asia, you can rule over Asia. That's why in the past, United States and Russia both were interested in Afghanistan, Pakistan, India. All these countries are very important to rule over South Asia. South Asia is the largest continent in the world, and if they want to have a strong control in whole Asia, they have to have a strong position in South Asia because it's something like the center of the region. Now let's look at India briefly. We all know that India wants to build its global image with its size, population, and economic growth. Right at the moment, India is working very hard and it is trying to expand its influence around the world. India has a huge population, it is big in size, and its economic growth is very impressive. Now India is engaging with all the countries of the world to make it very important in global politics. And it is more or less stable. India is having a stability. It is a stable country, and it is increasing its influence in Indian Ocean region. India in recent times is expanding its reach, expanding its influence. It is exercising its power in the Indian Ocean region, and it has expanded its relations in Africa, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. You know that India and Indonesia has good relations. India and Thailand, India, Singapore, Malaysia, whole South Asia is engaging with India at the moment. Recently, the Indian Prime Minister even went to Papua New Guinea, right? So, the reach of India in Southeast Asia is expanding. In the Middle East is very good. Africa, they're expanding. So now, at the moment, India is expanding its global reach. And India sees China as the greatest threat because in 1962, both India and China had war. India and China have border dispute, and they're competitor. They compete against each other. That's why India sees China as the greatest threat, a greatest competitor as well. Even at the moment, there is border conflict between India and China. Again, if you look at Himalayan frontiers, the Himalayan range, they are vulnerable as China has expanded its infrastructure very near to the Indian border. Okay? In the Himalayas, there is Nepal. With Nepal, India has open border. Then there is Bhutan. With Bhutan, it has very good relations. Then Myanmar. So there is all Himalayan range. India also has its own Himalayan regions. So China, in recent times, is expanding its reach. It is increasing its presence, making Himalayan region very vulnerable. That's why it's a matter of concern for India. And that's why India is working on Quad, the 4 countries, Australia, Japan, US, and India. 4 countries has formed an alliance, a security alliance called Quad, Quadrilateral Security Alliance, where India is working to minimize the threat it has in the region. And there is also deep relation between Himalayan and ocean, which we'll talk later. Similarly, if you look at India with China, India, being a democracy, has number of partners around the world. It has relations with the US, many countries in Europe, many countries in Southeast Asia, while number of partners for China is few. So that is the conflict relations, the two different dissimilarities. Can you? Yeah. Now, next is rise of China. We all know that China is a global power now. It is a neighbor of South Asia, and every country knows China. China is in every country. There is a saying that God made this planet Earth and rest is made by China. That is the kind of influence that China has exercised in a very short time. Now let's look at rise of China. With the rise of China, there is rise of South Asia as well. We all know that South Asia is rising and China is also rising. Both the region is rising. And there is rise in aspiration of South Asian countries as well. With the rise of India, now Nepal want to rise. Sri Lanka have similar aspirations. Bangladesh is rising very fast. Bhutan is rising. So with the rise of India, rise of China, other countries of South Asia, smaller countries of South Asia is also rising very fast. And China is one of the most important external players in South Asia. Okay? If any country that engages most in South Asia apart from India is China. China has very deep engagement with all the South Asian countries except Bhutan. And much of South Asia's future is linked with China, right? Every country's future is linked with China and China-India relations, because China and India have conflicted relations. The future of South Asia has one China factor, which is a very important factor. Similarly, South is also important for China, like China is important for all the South Asian countries. South Asian country or South Asia is also very important for China, because if China want to expand its Belt and Road project, it has to have South Asia into confidence. Okay, and there is also shift in geopolitics to Indo-Pacific region. The politics of the Europe, the center of world is no longer Europe. The center of global politics has shifted from Europe to Indo-Pacific region, Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean. This region is the major center of geopolitics at the moment. And that's why South Asia, which comes under Indo-Pacific region, has important. So South Asia is going to shape geopolitics. Now, South Asia is not only going to shape Asian politics, it is going to shape the global politics in days to come. Now, if you look at rise of China, how China has emerged as a power, and what is the influence? With the rise of China, China has created space around the world. Now, Indonesia and China has no border, but Indonesia and China has deep relations. Africa and China has no border, but they have deep engagement. So when you emerge as a power, every country wants to have relations. Every country's neighbor is US. You want to have United States as a neighbor. You have deep engagement with the United States because United States is a global power. So when you are a global power, it's in every country. United States is present even in Indonesia because it's a global power. So when China has emerged as a power, China has created a space around the world. China is in Indonesia, China is in Australia, China is in Latin America, China is in Africa, because China is a global power. So that is how China has created space around the world. Second is that China has also created space around the world when traditional partners, traditional forces have failed to meet the aspirations of that country. Like for example, in the past, Nepal and India had good relations. But now Nepal has bigger dreams. Now if India do not fulfill that, now Nepal can look at China. In the past, Africa was taken care by Europe. Now Europe is not taking enough care of Africa. Africa have bigger dreams. Africa want faster development. Africa do not want to fully rely on Europe because the dreams is higher. Now they look at China. So when traditional partners, when they do not fulfill the aspirations, dreams, desires, or when they make flawed policies, then China become important. In the past, maybe United States was important for South Asia, Southeast Asia. But now South Asia has bigger dreams. They're not happy just engaging with United States. Now they can look beyond United States, that is China. So that is how China has created space around the world at two levels. Now, how do China engage around the world? Chinese engage around the world at four levels. First, Chinese come as a trader. China will come to Indonesia. They'll start selling Chinese goods, Chinese computer, mobile phones, projectors, radio, televisions, and they will have trade. When that trade flourishes, when it's successful, when Chinese are very happy with the trade, they will go for investment. They will think, rather than bringing Chinese computer from Beijing or Shanghai or Guangzhou, why not produce it in Indonesia? So they start opening factories in Indonesia. They'll start opening, different business houses. So they go for investment. When the investment is strong, when they have huge investment, now they want securitization of investment. They want to protect that investment. They want that investment to be safeguarded. So they start going for defense cooperation. Now they'll talk to the Indonesian government and they'll say, please protect my investment. Now they'll start influencing the defense sector so that their investment can be secured. Once that happens, Chinese can also go for political advice. They go to South, they went to Cambodia. They start telling, if you want to develop like China, do this. If you want to develop like China, follow this policy, have these kind of plans. They start giving political advice to political leaders. That is how China is engaging around the world. In some countries, they are in third level. In some countries, second level. In some countries, they are in fourth level. In in Nepal, Chinese are on the fourth level. In Cambodia, Laos, they are in the fourth level. And how do confidence of engaging with China comes? Why do countries engage with China? And where did the confidence come? If you look at the countries that engage with China, are China's rival. The biggest country that engages with China is United States of America. Then it can be Europe, Japan, Australia, India. These are the countries that have huge economic engagement. The biggest trade of China is with all these, US, South Korea, Japan, Australia, and they are the biggest enemies of China. So when the enemies of China, which do not have very good relation with China, they have the biggest trade, other small countries think, why should we not have relations with China? When Indonesia has no problem with China, when Malaysia has not much problem with China, they might have some border conflict. When other countries like Nepal has not much problem with China, they think that when the rivals, when the biggest enemies, US and China, China, India, China, Europe, China, Japan, China, South Korea has major problems in their relations. If they can also have business, biggest trade, why should we not have that business with China? That's why the other small countries are very confident in engaging with China on economic front. So now you can see China engaging, in Nepal engaging with China, Sri Lanka having deeper engagement, and many countries of other Africa having deeper engagement. In South Asia, we all know that India has been dominant power. And sometimes India acts unilaterally. Sometimes India do not addresses the concern of other countries. So in that situation, when India do not address the concern of the countries, they bring China on the table. They bring China to challenge them. And then it's a bargaining tool. China at times act as a bargaining tool for the countries of South Asia. When India is not able to address their demand, when India do not address the demand, then China is like a negotiating tool on the table. They bring China on the table, then India says, oh, okay, let's resolve the problem. No problem, we'll address your demands. That is how, countries do play China card at times. You can hear that in recent times, India has brought neighborhood first policy. And one of the major factors might be China, that due to increasing engagement of China in South Asia, India might have realized that the neighbors of India is very important for its geopolitical rise. That's why China factor can be one, that China card might have forced India to come for a neighborhood first policy where India gives him highest priority to its neighbors. We all know that China has huge edge on technology. In the artificial intelligence, China has made huge revolution. China claims that it will lead the fourth industrial revolution. That is another factor that countries around the world, they like to engage with China. Can you please change the slide? Okay, sorry. Now let's look at, yes, let's look at China's South Asia policy. South Asia is very important for China, and for the present president, current president, Xi Jinping is very important. For Xi Jinping, South Asia is very important because in the past, the PLA, Chinese People's Liberation Army, used to dominate South Asia. They had a very important role in South Asia. A special, PLA used to dominate, they used to control South Asia policy. For the first time, Chinese President Xi Jinping, he started having a strong control. He started giving a special attention to South Asia. If you look at previous president, very few had given importance to South Asia. Most of them had left South Asia for PLA to dominate. But Xi Jinping, when it came to power, he started giving special attention, special care to South Asia. What is the reason? We all know that Xi Jinping was born in Xi'an, the ancient capital of China, where there was Kublai Khan ruling China at that time, in the ancient past. So Xi Jinping, he comes from Xi'an, and South Asia and Xi'an has Buddhist links. There is the Buddhism entered into China through Xi'an at the time of Kublai Khan, or even before. And Xi Jinping has spent lots of time in Tibet as well. Xi Jinping's father was in Tibet as the party head, and he was taking care of the party activities. So Xi Jinping was born in Xi'an, and he has spent lots of time in Tibet. And both Xi'an and Tibet has Buddhist linkages. That's why Xi Jinping has love for Buddhism, not as a religion, but as a philosophy. Xi Jinping says that I like Buddhism, Buddhist philosophy, not as a religion, because I am communist, I don't believe in religion. That is what Xi Jinping says. But he says that he loves Buddhist philosophy. And he also knows that if they want to have prosperous Tibet, Xi Jinping knows that, the eastern coast of China is developed. Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Fujian, Tianjin, Hong Kong, Hangzhou, all these regions are highly developed. But if you go to other side, Xinjiang, Tibet, or some part of Kunming, they're not developed, right? So Tibet's development is also very important. So if China want to have development of Tibet, South Asia is very important. Tibet can be developed only by trading with South Asia. If there is trade between South Asia and India, South Asia, Tibet and India, Tibet and Nepal, then Tibet can develop. That's why Xi Jinping is giving huge importance to South Asia for Tibet's development. And probably Xi Jinping is the only president who has visited all the South Asian countries except Bhutan. Except Bhutan, Xi Jinping has visited all the South Asian countries. He has come to Nepal, he has come to India many times, he has to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan many times. He's the only president, I think, who has visited all the South Asian countries, except Bhutan. Bhutan and China do not have diplomatic relations. So Xi Jinping can't go to Bhutan because there's no diplomatic relations. First, they have to have diplomatic relations, then he can visit. Apart from Bhutan, again, China is working very hard to have diplomatic relations. China is working for that. So it's also during Xi Jinping's tenure. So apart from Bhutan, he has visited all the South Asian countries, which shows that South Asia is very important for Xi Jinping. And he also visited all the ancient places like of India. I personally believe that Xi Jinping is promoting Buddhism, not as a religion, but as a philosophy, because he has love for Buddhism. I think he is influenced by his father. When his father was there in Tibet, his father wrote a letter to Chairman Mao at the time. He said to Chairman Mao, he wrote an 11,000 word letter suggesting that they should not remove religion from Tibet. When China took over Tibet, they removed the religion. So his father was the head. He wrote a letter to Chairman Mao, to Beijing, don't remove religion. It is a uniting force. If you want to unite the people, if the people have faith, the nation has hope and the country has strength. That is what he said. That if you want to unite the people of Tibet, if you want to have people of Tibet supporting China, you need religion. Religion has a very important role because it unites the people. So that is what he wrote, but his father was punished by the party. At the time, no one listened. But Xi Jinping, now he's a president. So I think he's influenced by his father, that why he want to encourage Buddhism. He want to, bring unity among the people of Tibet. If you go to Tibet recently, you'll find lots of big monasteries coming up. New development in the name of religion is happening place. Obviously, he's destroying mosques and other parts, but he's trying to preserve Buddhist culture. She also helped rebuild various famous temples in China, and that's why I think he has realized the importance of religion. You know how Modi has used Hindutva to come to power. Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, used religion to come to power. Putin uses religion to come to power. So now Xi Jinping will also realize the importance of religion, and he is using that in the security of Tibet. Xi Jinping also fears the blockade of Strait of Malacca. You know where it is, near Malaysia. So they think that if there is war tomorrow, South China Sea is vulnerable, right? There can be war anytime. So if there is war at South China disturbed, how can trade takes place for China? Almost 90% of China's trade takes place through Strait of Malacca. So tomorrow, if there is war, if there is conflict in the Strait of Malacca, Xi Jinping or China need alternative routes. They need other routes for trade. That's why China want to have alternative routes through South Asia, through Pakistan, through Nepal, through India, through other routes. China want to have continuous trade and continuous energy supply, petroleum, energy, oil. They want to have continuous supply even during war. That's why China want to have deeper engagement with South Asia as an alternative to the Strait of Malacca. Now, you all know what is Belt and Road, which Chinese have propagated in 2013. More than 100 countries are part of that, where China claims that it has more than 70% of world population, and China want to connect the countries around the world, right? And it has different routes, which you all are aware of. Let me move to next. This is the outline of China's Belt and Road, which many of you might have read. Now, what is the major reason of China coming to Belt and Road? Why China came with this concept? Why it's so important for China? Belt and Road Initiative is China's biggest dream. It's Xi Jinping's biggest foreign policy at the moment. Now, why? First is that China wants to reduce the cost and time of transportation of Chinese goods around the world. China wants to send its goods very fast at low cost. For that, you need better connectivity, better transport system. You need better roads, you need better ports, better communication lines, optic fibers and all. That will reduce the cost of goods and services that China provide, and that will benefit China economically. That is one. Second, if you look at China, China has excess production of cement and steel. Chinese came to know that if you want to make China stronger, if you want to rebuild China, you need lots of steel, lots of cement, and they produce a lot. Do you know how much they produce? They produce so much that they can't spend now. So if you go to China, they are building a huge washroom, toilet, which is as big as 3-4 buildings. If they want to create a library, they will create a very tall building, because they have huge resources. If they want to have a road, they'll make 10-lane road, not 8, not 6, because they have huge amount of resources. They have huge amount of cement and steel. If you look at the history, China consumed in 3 years, from 2011 to 2013, they spent more cement than what United States consumed in 100 years. From 1900 to 2000, it's 100 years. In 100 years, the amount of cement that whole United States as a country used in rebuilding that country, Chinese spent more than that in just 3 years. So you can imagine how much steel and cement they have overproduced, right? So that's why now Chinese want to send that cement. So they're asking Indonesia, do you want to have railway? Please use it. Then they go to Africa, do you want to have train? Do you want to have roads? Please use our cement. They are going around the world selling their cement and steel. Because if there is more connectivity, road, ports, ships, all coming together, there will be consumption of Chinese overproduced cement and steel. At the same time, China has spent lots of money developing the country. You know, they have made very wonderful roads, buildings, colleges, hospitals, ports, everything. Now, if they rely too much within the country, what will happen? Their economy will collapse. So now they are trying to earn foreign currency. So they are going to Indonesia. They said, oh, I have built my railway. I am still building. But let's make in Indonesia as well. They are going to Malaysia. They are going to Singapore, Laos, everywhere. They are going to Africa, Kenya, all over the world, you know, making ports, railway, schools, hospitals. They are coming to Nepal, making, you know, roads and all. So that is how China want to earn foreign currency by spending their money outside the country. And that will strengthen their currency, okay? By doing that, RMB, yuan will be stronger. As I said, by BRI, China will also get access to alternative routes. You know, if they want to have access to Central Asia, Russia, Southeast Asia, deep water, they need alternative routes. So that's why they are propagating Belt and Road Initiative. At the same time, I told you that, we just discussed that the eastern side of China is developed. If you go to Guangzhou, it's as developed as US. If you go to Shanghai, it's as developed as Japan. You go to Fujian, or you go to Shandong, not Shandong is central, you go to Hainan, Hong Kong, you know, all those are highly developed, like the Europe or Americans. But the other parts are not developed. And for that, they need connectivity. That's why most of the BRI project is on the southern and western side. They want to have development of Xinjiang, they want to have development of Tibet. So that's why more of Silk Route, more of Belt and Road Initiative projects are on this side for better development of the neglected region of south of China. So there is demand for that. Now, what is Chinese policy at the moment? If you look at Chinese strategy is to have political stability and robust economic growth. At the moment, China want, you know, political stability. They don't want change in communist system. They want the Communist Party to rule over another 30, 40, or 50 years. They want political stability, and with that stability, they want to have economic growth. They want to emerge as the largest economy in the world. China want to emerge as the biggest, most richest country in the world by political stability. And they also want to avoid conflict with the US. They think that if they want to emerge as the richest country, they should not have conflict with the US. They don't want to have war with the US. You know, China want to avoid major conflict with the US. That is their policy. At the same time, China encourages multipolar world, unipolar Asia. China want to be the most powerful in Asia. China want to be the only country in Asia that is most powerful. No country in Asia should be there that can challenge China. They are not happy with the rise of India. They're not happy with other countries rising. They want no country in Asia should challenge China. So there should be only one big power in Asia, that is China. But they want multipolar world. They don't want one powerful US. They want powerful US, powerful Russia, powerful Europe. They want different powers, multipolar world. But in Asia, it want to be the only power. That is their strategy. At the same time, China want to use economic growth for international influence and strengthen its defense. You know, China is an economic power. Now China have deep relation with Indonesia. Number of Belt and Road project or connectivity project is going on. They have lots of money. They are going to Malaysia and spending in development. They are going to Laos, Cambodia, you know, Myanmar, Nepal, Africa. They are going around the world with their money, because with that money they want to emerge as a strong force. They want to emerge as a stronger power. At the same time, they also want securitization. They are having ports in Pakistan, Iran, or Djibouti, different parts of the world. And you know, when China took over, when PLA took over China, they could not take over Taiwan. And one of the major reasons was that at that time PLA was strong, but they did not have naval experience. PLA did not have navy. In terms of navy, PLA was not strong. That's why they could not control Taiwan. So China realized that though they have a strong military force, in terms of PLA, they are very strong, but in terms of Navy, they are not so strong. Chinese are not very strong in the ocean. So that's why what they started started spending lots of money on PLAN. PLAN for Navy. Plan was where Chinese spend lots of money. You know, by till 2019, 7 years ago, means 2012, around 2010-12, China had only 2 warships. And at the time, US had more than 150. Almost 10 years ago, China had only two warships, and US had 150. In 7-10 years, what happened? Now, China had 335 warships, and US had just 296. In 10 years, there's massive rise of naval forces. There is massive development of China's navy. China has done wonderful development in this sector, and that has made America concerned. You know, when America was involved in Afghanistan, when America was engaged in Afghanistan, China emerged as a strong military power, not only on land, but also in ocean. And at the same time, you know that China has started claiming land. You know, South China Sea is disputed. There is, I think, even with Indonesia, I think there is some dispute with Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam. You know, China has with Japan, Korea, the whole South Asia region, South China Sea. China has started claiming those islands. It has a strong military presence because the navy presence of China is very strong. So this is an area of concern for the world. These are the places where Chinese are expanding its footprint. Chinese are expanding its naval presence in those regions. Now let's look at Nepal and BRI. I personally think that Nepal will benefit from BRI. Nepal will benefit from One Belt, One Road. Many countries of the world are benefiting from China's economic support, China's currency, China's investment. I think Nepal should also benefit, and Nepal will benefit. I think there are 3 ways Nepal can benefit. One is bilateral. Nepal and China can develop relations at the bilateral level, and they can improve connectivity. There can be better trade between Nepal and China, better roads, better railway, better transportation system. Another is that BCIM. I'll go to that, and trilateralism. This is BCIM. At the moment, China is talking about Kunming in China. This is Bangladesh, Sylhet. This is, Myanmar. This is Bangladesh, Sylhet. Myanmar is Mandalay, and this is Calcutta. So there is BCIM, Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar. This corridor is under construction. So I think Nepal should be part of BCIM as well. If you're part of BCIM, then you'll be able to connect Kunming to Lhasa to Kathmandu. So K to K will be connected. Right now, K to K, Calcutta is being connected, so Nepal will be part of BCIM. So by being a part of that, Nepal will benefit a lot. One, Nepal should have bilateral relations. Second, Nepal should be part of BCIM. Third is trilateralism, where, as you know, that Nepal is between India and China. Nepal can have both Indian and Chinese investment. India and China can come together and invest in Nepal. Nepal has 2 major sectors, tourism. You know, India and China are the world's most populous country. They are also rich. Even if 1% of Chinese tourists and 1% of Indian tourists come to Nepal, will be very rich. Second resource is that Nepal has huge amount of hydropower. We can produce electricity from water. Our capacity is 40,000 megawatt, and right now we don't even produce 2,000 megawatt. So both India and China has technology and money. So if India and China come together, if they invest in tourism sector and hydropower sector, Nepal can have huge development. So that is what trilateral talks about. Now, this is the map of Nepal. We have China on the north, Tibet, and 3 side India. These are the places where India want to connect with railway. And upper are the places where China want to have highway with Nepal. This green dots is a railway line that comes from Lhasa to Tibet. Now that is under construction. So very soon, the Chinese railway from Beijing will be touching Nepal border. Now, what will happen after this? Can you please change the slide? Yes. What will happen? What will happen is that now, if that happen, BCIM, Kunming to Calcutta is there, then and railway is from Beijing to Lhasa. What will happen? Nepal will be in the center of three major markets. One, Nepal will be the center of South Asia market. The biggest market of South Asia is India. Chennai, Calcutta, Delhi, Mumbai are connected by high-speed railways. Then India is developing Mekong, India Economic Corridor, where India has connected itself with Southeast Asia. They have connected with Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, all are being connected. And China is the biggest market, and China is connected with the world. So Nepal will be able to place itself into three major markets: East Asian market, which is China, Southeast Asian market, and South Asian market. So Nepal will be in the center of three major markets, and if that connectivity takes place, Nepal will have huge benefits. So I think Nepal will have maximum gain because Nepal is in the center by trilateralism. For China, it's very important because China will get access to South Asia. China will get access to South Asia through Nepal, and India also will get access to Central Asia because India wants to have access to Central Asia for energy supply. In the past, India had asked Pakistan to give access to that, but the relations are volatile. So maybe through trilateralism, China can provide access to Tibet and Xinjiang and further to Central Asia through India, if they are able to collaborate through trilateralism. I think there are three major drivers that can support China for trilateralism. Three major factors that can force China to go for trilateralism. One is that, as I said, China wants to develop its peripheries like Yunnan, Xinjiang, and Tibet. And if China wants to develop that part, they should have good relations with South Asia. At the same time, if they don't have good relations with South Asia, these parts are vulnerable. Xinjiang and Tibet are vulnerable. So if they do not enjoy good relations, the security of that region can be affected. That's why for security, for development, China has to have good relations with South Asia. That is the first factor that will force China to go for trilateralism. Second is growth imperative. At the moment, the growth of China is declining. The growth of China is not 9%, 10% like in the past, it's 5%. So now China is looking for fresh markets. China is looking for markets in Africa, Latin America. They're going beyond the world. Now, if they can go to Latin America and Africa, how can they ignore the huge market that is at South Asia? South Asia market is just next to China. How can they ignore huge market while they're going, Latin America and Africa? So that is growth imperative. Third is, as I said, the Strait of Malacca. Tomorrow, if South China Sea become a conflict zone, how will China get access to its trade and energy? It needs South Asia, alternative routes. Now, this is the Strait of Malacca, which you all know because you are from the region. We all know that through Strait of Malacca, the highest amount of trade takes place. This is the sea route. You can see the maximum number of vessels, maximum ships go through that. This is the book that we came on, Trilateralism. This is the book which we worked on, India, Nepal, China's trilateralism, where all the three countries should work on. Okay, Indo-Pacific strategy. Now, as I said that in last one decade, China has emerged as a strong naval power, and that gave birth to Indo-Pacific strategy. If you look at history of United States, the recent contemporary history, there are three major shocks. American got three major shocks in last 3 decades. First was 9/11. There was a time where US used to think that no country in the world can touch us. Russia is not as powerful that can challenge US. China is not powerful. Even Russia and China come together, US can deal with that. But what will happen? One morning, one person from a country called Afghanistan, where 99.9% Americans don't even know where it is, attacked US. They attacked, and it was so shocking for US. That was the biggest shock, that why did Afghanistan, a country which we don't know, attack us? When Russia can't think of attacking US, where China can't even dream of attacking US, but one person from one country, which is a poor country, attacked US. That was the biggest shock for Americans, because they used to live in a world that no country can challenge US in terms of security. They had the best military, best intelligence, best of everything. That was the biggest shock. Then came Afghanistan. Americans used to think that they have the biggest, most powerful military force, most trained, best technology. But what happened? They fought for 20 years. And after fighting for 20 years, they had to leave Afghanistan without winning a war. In Vietnam, Americans might have consoled themselves that in Vietnam there was Russia supporting them. But Afghanistan, no country was supporting them. No country was supporting Afghanistan. Rather, everyone was supporting US, NATO forces, India, China, all were on one side. And they had to leave Afghanistan fighting for 20 years in spite of having the world's best training, best equipments, best technology, best intelligence, everything of the best. That's another shock for Americans, because they used to think they have the world's most advanced military power. Third was China's naval force. That when they were involved in Afghanistan, all of a sudden they see, oh, China has got so many ships, 300 ships. They used to have 2 yesterday when I went for war. And when I come from war, it's 300 ships. That was the biggest shock for Americans. And then they thought, now, when we are fighting in Afghanistan, we are losing China, losing war with China. So they started having an Indo-Pacific strategy. I'll take another maximum 5 minutes. So that is the shock. We all know that there is disputed island claims by China, which US is concerned. Now US is coming with new strategy. US think that it can't deal with China alone. It needs partners. So they have come with Indo-Pacific strategy. They come Quad. They came with AUK-US. Many new strategies are coming to challenge China. I personally think that there is a deeper engagement between Indo-Pacific, the water, and the Himalayas. When India said we'll be part of Quad, China started attacking the Himalayan region. There was Doklam with Bhutan. Then there was a standoff with India. So when India started challenging China in the water, when India sent the signal that if you want to challenge me, I'll challenge in the water. I'll hurt your economic interest. China said, oh, you'll hurt my economic interest in the water. I'll hurt your strategic interest in the Himalayas. So China started attacking Indian sensitive points in the Himalayas, be it Doklam or many points in India. So there's deep relation. If there's more competition in water, the effect will also be on the Himalayas. There's deeper relations. In the past, this is going to be very complex, because in the past, India and Russia had an understanding that let's not allow US in this region. In the past, it was only Pakistan who allowed a space for United States, but all the major power had an understanding that let's not allow US in South Asia, because that will destabilize. India and China used to believe that if you bring US in South Asia, it will destabilize the region. But now the situation has changed, where India want to bring US in South Asia. So this is going to be very complex in days to come. This is major points. I'll skip those. These are bases of India, US, and China. This is the conflict zone where most of the conflicts are taking place at the moment. This is how India is engaging around the world. India at the moment is trying to have strengthened Quad. They are improving maritime domain awareness. They are improving operational reach of Indian Army. They are improving maritime infrastructure. They are improving strategic coordination, improving introspectivity, and capacity building with the Quad members. That is how India is developing around those lines. Can you please change? Can you please change the slide? Yes. This is the book that we worked on, where we look at how the whole Asia will be, balancing Asia through China's Belt and Road and US Indo-Pacific strategy. Next slide. Yes. Now let's look at US and then we'll conclude. Still, US aim to remain as the most significant power. US want to be one of the major power in Asia. US is still aiming to be one of the major power, significant power. US has left Afghanistan, but US has not left South Asia or the region. US still have very strong presence in South Asia. And till now, US is the only power able to dominate the world. Though China is challenging US, China is not capable to dominate the world. Still, there are many parts of the world where Chinese do not have strong influence. They're not able to act much. But still, in spite of all those, in spite of massive rise of China, US is still the only power that controls the world, that dominates the world. And US is also increasing its presence in South Asia through Quad, Indo-Pacific strategy, in Nepal through MCC, and other means. Let's move to next slide, please. Now, Russia-Ukraine crisis and South Asia, you all know that Russia and Ukraine are fighting war since almost a year. So, while the US attention on China is to contain, at the moment, while China, US attention was on China, to contain China. At that time, all of a sudden, there was new conflict, Russia-Ukraine. So, this Russia-Ukraine conflict has diverted the attention of US. While they were concerned at China, where they used to see China as a threat, China as an enemy, the new, old, enemy has again come back. So that is a concern for China. So Russia-Ukraine crisis has given China some more time, because when China and USA were ready to confront, the new conflict came, now US is looking at that. So there is some time for China to, again, strengthen its power. For some time, the conflict between US and China will not be that intense that would have happened without the war of Russia-Ukraine. We all know that Russia depends on China, both economically and politically, and India is dependent on Russia for security and political needs. India has no veto power, so it always asks Russia for help. So in this situation, one can question that, does Russia, China, India has a future? Because Russia is dependent on China, India is dependent on Russia. Are Russia, India, and China coming together in future? That is one people can question. We all know that a stronger sanction on Russia has forced India and Russia relations and Russia-China ties.
Dr. Jaiswal, we should finish in 3 minutes.
Yes. So this is the probably last slide. So due to sanctions, Russia and India has become more closer. Russia and China has become more closer. In fact, when there were sanctions, India and China bought more oil. We feel that China can be the biggest beneficiary here in this situation, and at the same time, maybe India and China might be forced to sit together, because Russia can be a balancer in this situation. So in conclusion, what we can conclude is that China, India, Nepal trilateral cooperation is interest in the region. It can benefit all the countries. Rise of China is an opportunity, not only for South Asia, but for the whole world. China has made other global powers more serious in South Asia, because when other powers are not very serious, China has made them serious. India is more concerned. India has come with naval policy. It is working better in recent times because of China to have its influence. And China and India should resolve their differences and have fruitful engagement, and they will be the largest beneficiary as well as the small neighbors, because Asian century, it cannot be conceived on the premises of India-China rivalry. So if you want to see Asian century, both India and China has to come together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jaiswal. That was such a very extensive presentation from you. I mean, like, you have covered a lot of topics that should be delivered in one semester into one class. So thank you for that. I think that I cannot really summarize it easily into one sentence, but what I get the most from Dr. Jaiswal's elaboration today is that when we are looking into geopolitics of South Asia, we should always consider the actors who are currently playing important roles like China, India, Russia, and United States that have a crucial role in shaping the dynamics of South Asian geopolitics, and therefore you are you are trying to propose what we call as the trilateralism between Nepal, China, and India, because they're actually in need of each other rather than just having conflict with each other. So if there's any questions, you've got a lot of students who would like to answer. So let's give it to ladies first. On that side, woman with the black cloth. Students, you are also welcome to ask in Bahasa Indonesia if you want to, but it is preferred if you can answer in English. Please mention your name, your class, and your batch. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, thank you, sir, for coming here and lending your time to deliver such a wonderful lecture. My name is Aiska Rahmada Fadila, and I have been actually curious about this topic because I'm still not really unaware of this issue. Therefore, my curiosity is increasing, and I would like to ask a question or your perspective regarding this issue, and that is how, considering China impacts and their big influence in, well, we can say most parts of the world, there is like a raised debate and ongoing discussions regarding the potential implications of power dynamics and power balance. And so my question is, how is your perspective of smaller countries, how would they still be able to obtain and secure their economic independence, but also not depending or overly becoming dependent on major powers? Because I think that's the case right now with Pakistan, how most of their economic disputes are helped by China. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Should you answer one by one?
Yeah, maybe I can respond.
Okay.
I'm a realist, a structural realist, and I think that every country is based on interest. When we engage with China, it should serve our interest. When China come to us, China come with its own interest. So when we're engaging with China, we should not give our interest. We should see what is beneficial. I mean, when countries around the world, when US went to China, when Japan went to China, India went to China, in spite of inflicting relations, what was the factor that forced them? It was their interest. So it's same with us. When we're engaging with China in terms of economy, which is a stronger power, we should be careful and we should protect our interest. We are not saying that we should give, free hand to China in our economy. We should not give, free access to China. If it serves our interest, then only we'll engage with China. We should engage with China if it serves our interest. If it is not going to serve our interest, we're not going to engage with China. That is what is very important, that this economic independence should be the priority. I mean, if it serves our interest, then only we should engage with China. It's not asking that, you should just go and have engagement with China, get their Belt and Road project, and be into death trap. That is not the solution. But what I want to say is that there are some countries who say, don't go to China, it's a rival power. That should not be the slogan, and that should not be the tendency or the policy for us. If it serves our interest, we'll go, because dollar do not have any color, isn't it? Investment. We are two different countries. Nepal is different in terms of political system. We don't want to import Chinese communism. But since China is an economic power, it's a global power, it's an opportunity, Nepal should not be shy to engage with China if it serves Nepal interest. So that is very important, that while engaging with China, on any of the front, be it economic, your own national interest should be the top priority. That should be the guiding principle while engaging with China. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ashka, for your very good question. Who else would like to ask? Mas, you're with the gray shirt.
Okay, Bismillah. Thank you so much, Mr. Pramod, for your presentation. So beforehand, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Azgal Mufasa Kamasha, and I'm from batch 21. So I actually have several questions, but I only donated two. So my first question is, from what I know, Nepal is used to be a monarchy for hundreds of years. And since the Civil War in 19th and early 20s, it's after the Civil War, it became a federal democracy. So my first question is it the same federal democracy that is applied in Nepal is the same as what has been applied in India for years? Since it's still quite early in Nepal for being a federal democracy since 2008, if I wasn't mistaken. And my second question is, with all due respect, sir, I would like to ask your personal opinion. Nepal is mostly Hindu. So there is also a Varna caste system. So what I wanted to ask is your opinion about, is Varna is still like reliable? Can we still like use that for nowadays, since this is like 2023 and a lot of people think that is not aligned with the human rights? So that is my two questions. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. On the issue of monarchy, yes, Nepal had king for 205 years. And gradually Nepal started democratizing, and in 2008, Nepal became a republic. Now Nepal no longer have a king. The majority of the people in Nepal believes that the king was exploitative. King was not able to address the demand of the people. That's why the king was removed. Nepal did not remove the king for 200 years because people in the past were happy with the king. King was interested in development, giving rights to the people, and people were happy. But when king, actually the present king who was abolished, it's King Gyanendra. And before that, people had a strong law for King Birendra, the brother of king, who was killed in 2001. So people say that the people within the palace killed the king. King Birendra was known as, the incarnation of God, like Vishnu's avatar, the incarnation of one form of God, and had high respect. At that time, very few people used to speak against the king, and they said we want a republic. But when the king himself was killed by the member of his own family in 2001, when king was not able to protect himself, the institution of monarchy got diluted. That is one. Second, at the same time, there was rising aspirations among the people for democracy. Third, the new king who came after King Birendra's death was not able to get hold of people's confidence. That's why monarchy was abolished. I personally think that every system can be beautiful if it is well managed. There are many countries in this world which is monarchy and are doing quite well. There are many countries which is a democracy and they are doing quite well. There are many countries they are not communist, but they are doing quite well. So system doesn't matter. What matters is regime and the system within that regime. How you manage monarchy is important, not the system of monarchy. How you manage democracy is important, now not who become the president. How you manage your system is very, very important. That is one. Second, yes, I'm a Hindu and we follow Varna system, which is discriminatory. There are 4 Varna and it is exploitative, and I'm against that. There is strong voice against that. In fact, the Varna system itself has brought some collapse of Hinduism. The number of Hindus has come down. People are giving up Hinduism because of that exploitative nature. And there are people coming that we should abolish that. By law, we have abolished, but in practice, we have not. In practice, we still follow that. We still, I'm senior than you, I'm Hercule, I can go to temple. You should not go to temple, I am more pure, you are not. Still that Varna system is practiced, but by law, it is abolished. You can't, the law do not discriminate people on the basis of caste or Varna system. And I personally feel that it's against, it's against human right as well. So I think people in South Asia who believe in this system are revolting against it.
Okay, I think, so Azril is one of my students from South Asia class, and I think this is extended question from what I've discussed with him in the class. Also, Dr. Jeswal, we have some question from Zoom, if you'd like to entertain those questions. So the first question is coming from Raihan Shafa. So he's a master's student at the Macquarie University at Sydney. So he's asking, as Nepal acts as the buffer zone between India and China, We recognize the importance of both parties for Nepal development. Thus, what is the best policy for Nepal to rebalance its position between India and Nepal, as India and China will definitely pull Nepal toward each other? So what's your take on that?
The balancing is very important for Nepal. And Nepal has been adopting this policy since ancient times. Maybe almost several hundred years ago, there was a king called Amsubarma. In ancient Nepal, he had one daughter and one sister. And he got his daughter married to a Tibetan king. And he got his sister married to an Indian king. That is how king at that time balanced relation with both India and China. Even at the moment, Nepal balances its relations with both India and China. India is very important for Nepal because it borders on three sides. We have deep political, economic, cultural, historical relations, and we respect that. So Nepal has very deep relation with India. Nepal realizes India as a most important neighbor. At the same time, we also have China on the northern side, and China is an economic power. Thus, there is a strong demand for development in Nepal at the moment. Connectivity is one of the major demands because Nepal is mountainous. We don't have good roads. We don't have infrastructure like hospitals. So we look at China for that. So we balance both our neighbors. We are happy with taking Indian support. At the same time, we're also happy with taking Chinese investment and support. But while doing that, we take both our neighbor into confidence. When we take Chinese help, we may assure that Indians are not hurt. At the same time, when we take Indian interest, we assure Chinese that their interest will not be hurt. While engaging with any country in this world, we make sure that Nepalese soil is not used against China or India. Behind every activities of Nepal, Nepal is very careful not to hurt either of our neighbors. That is how Nepal has balanced and enjoyed cordial relations so far. In spite of that, there is competition. Sometimes it's difficult, but we have managed so far.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the room? The guy in the back, please.
Okay, so thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Tessa Panji Baguskoro from International Relations, batch of 2020. So Dr. Jaiswal, thank you so much for your presentations about a changing geopolitical landscape of South Asia. I was particularly interested in your discussions of the rise of China and its implication for the regions. So my questions would be, in your opinion, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities that South Asia faces in the coming years as a result of China's rise? And to be specific, how can South Asian countries cooperate to ensure that they are not disadvantaged by China's rise, growing economic and military power? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, yes, you have rightly remarked that the future of South Asia is in relation with the rise of China. It's very important. I think one of the major reasons is that the rise of China has entered into South Asia, and that will bring a kind of conflict or competition in the region, and that is the reality. The countries have to deal with that. At the same time, India also has to accept that. India has to accept that the rise of China is reality, and it should compete, it should resolve the differences diplomatically. While the countries of the region should also, in engaging with China, make sure that there is no major conflict, that it do not destabilize the region. That should be the responsibility of the countries of South Asia. While the South Asian countries should engage with China, I think personally that they should engage with China economically. While all the rivals of China has deepest engagement, we should not be shy to have economic engagement with China. But at the same time, we should not allow Chinese system influence our political system. Nepal is a democracy. China should not interfere into political situation of Nepal. China should not export communism to any part of the South Asia. China should not interfere because all these countries are sovereign countries. We should have economic engagement. At the same time, Nepal is not bothered what kind of political system China has, and China should do the same. China should respect each South Asian country's political situation. That will tone down the conflict, because as long as China do not export communism, the conflict level will not be too high. Second is that the other factor which is very important is India-China relations. The border dispute, how they manage that, how their relations are managed, that is another factor which is very important that determines the future of South Asia. If India and China's competition go intense, go for war, the whole South Asia will be destabilized, or whole South Asian countries will find it very challenging to engage with China. So for that, South Asian countries want to see better China-India ties. Then only they can have better relations, deeper engagement, without huge concern coming from India, which is a major power in the region. If the concern remains, it is challenging for this country to engage with China. So if they want to engage better with China, first there should be better India-China's engagement. So that is very important that both India and China should come together and resolve the border tension. If China also want to have access in South Asia, greater access, they should be serious in dealing with these concerns. Otherwise, there will be setbacks to their policies as well on South Asia policies. So I think the major concern will be, one, the stability will be affected because of India. The security interest has to be addressed. Otherwise, it is difficult for this region to cooperate together. Thank you.
Okay. I think that there's some question again in Zoom. Could you still entertain more questions?
Sure.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who are interested in your presentation. That's why we are receiving many more questions. So there is one question from Elif Balik Kurtarir. So she asked a question about what is your opinion about new developments in West Asia and China's initiative with Saudi Arabia? Does that affect the South Asian region?
I think I'd like to skip that question because I'm not expert on that.
Oh, you're not expert. Okay, yes. Okay. So for the ones who are asking the question in Zoom, Dr. Jaswal could not answer that. Any other question, please? Yes, Mas. You're one. Yes, Habib.
Okay. Good morning, doctor. Thank you very much. My name is I'm Habib Pasha. You can call me Habib. You talk a lot about China and India, and I'm very interested about that, and I want to ask you about what are your arguments about BRICS, Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa in the future? Thank you very much.
We all know that this grouping is very unique because all these countries have some comparative advantage and they are the leading economies. So when we are talking about conflict, India, China, and India, US and all, there is also cooperation which we have not talked much about. This is a very unique world at the moment. There is a mixed kind of relations. There is conflict, there is competition, cooperation, all takes place at the same time. So in spite of having differences, there is huge difference between US and China, but they are engaging in a huge way. There is huge difference between India and China. So I think these BRICS, these kind of initiatives are very important to minimize the conflict. First, that through this initiative, they will have benefits, they will have engagement, economic benefits, development will be there. At the same time, they will also be able to understand each other, and that will minimize the conflict. While they are engaging on economic front, we have seen that while India and China has come together on economic front, gradually there has been dialogue, discussion, and they have been able to bring the contentious issue on the table, and they are talking on those. If India and China had not had the type of engagement that they have at the moment economically, they might have a full-fledged war, but it didn't happen. They could stop it and they could communicate and talk on these issues. So I think this kind of regionalism, economic engagement, liberalization, all are very important for developing cordial ties because that minimizes the conflict and give an opportunity for countries to sit together and resolve any differences through dialogue. Thank you.
Okay, Habib, does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, it seems that it's not stopping. Okay, please. Please mention your name, your batch, and your question.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ilham Carol dari Antono. I have a question. How will Nepal manage relations with two great power like China and India while maintaining with its own sovereignty and national interests? Thank you.
If you look at Nepal-China relations, China has not interfered into Nepal's internal politics. China always believe in pro-establishment policy. Means China always engage with that power who is in power. They don't want to change the power, but they engage with anyone who is in power. When there was king, they engage with the king. When there is democracy, they started engaging with the democratic parties. So that is how Nepal and China has very cordial relations, and China has supported in Nepal's economic transformation. At the same time, Nepal and India has very unique relations, very deep engagement. There is people-to-people relation, cross-border marriages, there is historical relations. The currency of India and Nepal is pegged together, open border, we don't need visa, and all those. So there is unique relations. How Nepal balances that? Nepal, as I said, engage with both, because Nepal has good relations with both the neighbors, India and China. So Nepal is, as a sovereign country, is engaging with both the countries. But at the same time, while engaging with either, Nepal do not act in such a way that it can hurt the sensitivities of other countries. While engaging with China, Nepal makes sure that India's core interest, which is security, is taken care in Nepal. Similarly, while Nepal engages with Nepal makes sure that China's core interest, which is security, is taken care. So Nepal do not engage in such a way that it affects the other country. So Nepal is very sensitive in that. That is how it has been able to balance. As long as Nepal is able to address the major core issue of both the neighbors, Nepal will not have huge pressure in engaging with any countries in the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would that suffice? You still want to ask question? No? You're just raising your hand. Anyone? You can also ask in Bahasa. I mean, like, we are having a guest coming from Kathmandu, and it's really rare for us to have guests from Nepal. So, yes, please ask.
Check. Yeah. Thank you so much. Let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Regi Febriansa. I am from a batch of 2020, and I will explain to you. In senior high school, I learned about relationship between Indonesia and South Asia. That Indonesia and South Asia has a cooperation because Indonesia and South Asia is the same situation or condition as a developed country. And now Indonesia and South Asia has a cooperation with China. And what is your opinion that how Indonesia or South Asia for against domination of China in Indonesia or South Asia? Thank you.
Thank you. I think there is a deeper engagement between Indonesia and China. I'm not much aware of that. But I think there is also much opportunity for Indonesia and South Asia coming together. There is lots of scope for Indonesia in terms of investment, in terms of people-to-people connectivity, in terms of trade. Because when I came to this country, I was really impressed the way different religions, Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism, have been staying together in harmony with mutual tolerance for each other. That is what I have realized. I think if Indonesia is able to integrate itself with South Asia, there can be more tourists to Indonesia. At the same time, Indonesian can also have opportunity to visit many of those Buddhist, historical, and other cultural sites that are in South Asia. Second is that if there is deeper engagement between Indonesia and South Asia, tomorrow we can have better bargaining with China. If you put all your eggs on China, what will happen? There will be a time, China is a bigger player. There will be a time where you might have to go on the terms of China. But when you have alternative, or when you have partner, when you have alliances, you can have better bargaining power. So tomorrow, if there is Indonesia engagement with South Asia and Indonesia engaging with China, there can be alternative at times for Indonesia. either to bargain, or maybe Indonesia and South Asia together can negotiate with China, or at times there can be alternative for Indonesia, either go to China or South Asia. Because as I said, like suppose Indonesia sees a huge tourism market, China is a tourist market, right? Many Chinese might be coming to Indonesia. But it is also possible that if there is a direct flight between South Asian countries, if there is more awareness about each other, there can be more tourists coming from South Asia, because the population of South Asia is bigger than China. Today, the population of India is more than China. So the whole South Asian market is a bigger market than China. So if we are able to integrate, if South Asia and Indonesia is integrated, there's another big opportunity like China waiting for you there. So I think that is what is required, that there should be deeper engagement between Indonesia and South Asia. Or we can say Southeast Asia and South Asia is required, because in spite of being together very far near, we are yet far. You know, people of South Asia know more about Europe and other countries, and they're less about their neighbor, which is very near in Southeast Asia. So there is a lack of proper understanding. I mean, it took me many years to come to Indonesia, and I went to far, far countries. So that should not be the case. You know, the countries of South Asia and Southeast Asia, we're all Asian, should be more integrated. As if we are not able to integrate ourselves, then we can't have a better future. So when you talk about Asian century and all those, the first important thing is that there need to have a proper integration among the South Asian countries. That is the need of the hour. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that will be the last question. Okay, so there will be no more question, Dr. Jaiswal. And thank you so much. Applause, everyone, to Dr. Jaiswal.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. We are very honored with your attendance here and your presentation to our students. Hopefully this will be a starting point for further exchange between Indonesia and Nepali academicians, including the students. And I really hope that sometimes we can host students from Tribhuvan University as well, and hopefully that our students would also can come to Kathmandu and also enjoy the scenery of Himalaya. Yeah. Sadly, there's still no direct flights from Jakarta to Kathmandu, but I think we can take flight from Jogja to Singapore or Kuala Lumpur and Kuala Lumpur to Kathmandu. Yeah, but someday, we hope. Okay, so Dr. Jaiswal, we have some token of appreciation for you, Mbak Mayang. Yeah, so yeah, on behalf of the head of the department and also with the dean, yeah. Okay. So this is the building of the faculty. Yeah, so this is from the dean because she couldn't present herself. Okay, thank you. One more. Yeah. This is from our academy. So there are some notes and some simple merchandise from our academy. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so everyone, that marks the end of our class for today, our special session with Dr. Jaiswal. So hopefully there are more of you who are interested in writing about South Asia and Nepal, because I think that Nepal is often neglected as an academic topic. So I hope that with this talk, you'll be inspired to write an undergraduate thesis about Nepal, and I think that Dr. Jaiswal would be really to help you in writing those articles and publications. So thank you, especially for our online viewers and also Zoom participants. Wish to extend you our deepest gratitude for coming to this event, and see you on the next series of our special lecture sessions. And I, as a host and also session chair for the session, would like to close this session by saying Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.